Hi, my friends. All right. Before we go to geography, there is one very important issue that we have not yet actually addressed, and that was the question of the real question: what is Western, right? Because this course is the history of Western civilization, claims to be the history of Western civilization. So now we are trying to figure out what is exactly Western. What does our course mean by calling us Western civilization, by calling itself the history of Western civilization, and what does our book mean by Western civilization, right? So I begin by a quote, right, which I'm almost certain is from the book, right, but nevertheless is from one of the Western civilization course books, if not from our book. Okay, so this is a quote, right? The culture of the West was born in the fertile crescent of what we know as the Middle East, right? So, okay, remember we already talked about the West and that the presumption that there is an East, right? That the West, the concept of the West presumes the East, right, in itself, just as the North presumes the South, right? Here we are told incredibly, right? The culture of the West was born in the fertile crescent of what we now know as the Middle East. There's a problematic concept here. Here's a problematic concept here. Some will say there is a problematic concept here, right? And so on and so forth. And through this course, right, we will see what are the problems with it, right, of this title, right? So the culture of the West was born in the Fertile Crescent of what we now know as the Middle East, right? So why do we call it the Western civilization if it was born in the Middle East? Why do we call it the Western civilization if it was born in the Fertile Crescent, right? And what is the Fertile Crescent anyway? The Fertile Crescent is one of the most productive parts of the world, agriculturally one of the richest parts of the world, right? Because it is fertile, as its name describes, right? And is a great extent, and it looks like a crescent, right? And it incorporates two river valley civilizations, the civilization of Mesopotamia, one of the river valley civilizations, right? Mesopotamia, and meso means in between, and potamia means plural for rivers, right? Between two rivers, right? And I already asked you, please, my friends, if you consider, I told you all of that, right? If you consider, I think I told you in, if you consider Iran, right, as the center of the world, right, and I'm sure you have, I think I have told you, might be in one of the videos that I had to delete, but let me see, right, let me tell you what it is. Okay, I wanted to give you a hint. Okay, you remember the guy E.T., my friends, right? The extraterrestrial friendly sort of friend of ours from the time that most of you were not born, right? E.T., he was an E.T. It was a good friend, right? And his name was E.T. And imagine, right, in order to remember the name of these letters, these rivers, imagine E.T. is going to the center of the world, right, going to Iran, right? So therefore, Euphrates and Tigris River is part of this Fertile Crescent, and of course the Nile River and Egyptian civilization of Africa, right, is the second sort of river valley situation, river valley civilization, and since it is it looks like a crescent, and it is fertile, we call it the Fertile Crescent. So we are told that the culture of the West, right, was actually born, right, in Africa and in Asia, right? And the culture of Western civilization was born in Africa and Asia. So, the question is, why do we call it then history of Western civilization, right? Why? We will get to it further. But for the moment, I want you to tell you, my friends, this is another of this sort of academic misconceptions, right, that have been incorporated and are deeply, deeply ingrained in our culture, right? Because, as I told you, if you would have watched the convention during the past 2 nights, you see that Western civilization that was born in the Middle East, right, has a lot of claims, right, to what, for instance, Donald Trump stands for, right? Because the night before yesterday, we were told that Donald Trump is the bodyguard of Western civilization, right? Yeah. So now I want to introduce to you, and I want to tell you that we are calling it Western civilization in spite of the fact that it was born in the East, right? Because we are engaging in what is called historical imperialism, right? In other words, we are imposing our own agendas and our own definitions and our own sort of perceptions on a culture and a region and whatnot in order for it to serve our purposes, okay? And that's how we engage in imperialism. So, which is part of your textbook. This term, i.e. Western civilization, does not define one location, but instead refers to a series of cultures that slowly evolved and spread to impact societies all over the world. Western civilization began in the Middle East, which enjoyed the striking advantage of having plants for agriculture and so on and so forth. Then domestication came to the region. Then large cities developed in the region. Then labor and social stratification developed in the region, right? Then was the system of writing, right? For transmission of knowledge and so on and so forth. People started to record their history and so on and so forth, right? As a result. And therefore we were given the Western civilization. I guess thanks to the Fertile Crescent, right? Originally, at least, right? We were, we got this heritage from the East, which now we have totally co-opted it, right? Right? And I want you to go and look for the meaning of co-opt. Yeah, co-opting that culture and that history, right, as our own and making it Western civilization. So, when did Western civilization, origins of the Western civilization in the Middle East take place? Circa 3000 BCE. So, what do we mean by the Middle East now, right? Who coined the term? Oh, lo and behold, it is as late as the 20th century, right, that we were given this term. And by whom? By an American naval historian who really made it prevalent, the term Mahan, right? Which, it is Middle East because it is neither Near East nor is it the Far East, right? So that is as far as that is concerned, right? So now I want to continue with our map of the modern world, right? And our notions of East and West and the Middle East and whatnot. So bear with me, my friends, while I get our map. Okay, here a sip of coffee, and you can stop and go back and come. Okay, my friends, so here we are. We want to go to we don't need to as close. We want to go to the globe actually. Let's see. Okay, we want to go to the globe. Why do we want to go to the globe? Because the globe, at least, right, gives us a better sort of appreciation of the distances and the continents and whatnot on our Earth. Right, so let's start here, right? Let's start not in the Americas, right? Between which we have the between which and Europe and the rest of the world, we have the North Atlantic Ocean, right? North Atlantic Ocean or the South Atlantic Ocean, right? And then between China, right, and US and Canada, right, we have the Pacific Ocean, right, and this is Arctic Ocean, my friends, right, and this is Antarctica, right, and this is the Arctica, right, Arctic Ocean basically, right. So now remember by our Pangea, remember that these plates of Earth, right, because of the magma working underneath the crust of the Earth, and Pangea starts breaking, and the world our continents are created. One of the reasons that we cannot be 100%, we cannot say with certainty that we have 6 or 7 continents, is because in some places the continents join. Right, the continents join, and those are very, very important for us to keep in mind. To begin with, we will see that Africa, right, is really the very definition of a continent, right? Is surrounded by seas, except for this part here, right? This part here, which is the Sinai Peninsula, right? This rectangular, right, is the Sinai Peninsula, and it is this Sinai Peninsula, as you see, that connects Egypt, right, and Africa, the whole of Africa actually, right? The whole of Africa is connected to Asia to Asia, right? Starting from Eastern Mediterranean, going east, right? Africa is connected to Asia, right? Because of this Sinai Peninsula, right? And as we will see in our future videos, right? It was here, right? That when our species also developed, right, in Africa, and we became Homo sapiens in Africa, right, my friends? At that point, it was from this part of Africa that our ancient ancestors moved to Asia and across Asia, as we will see in our future lectures. But what I want you to consider here now and to pay attention to here, I'm sorry, let me just go out and go back here. What I want you to pay attention is the whole notion of sort of the connections that exist, right, between the lands, right? So what are these, right? Going back. No, I'm sorry. We want to go back to our video, map, right, my friends? And here we see that Egypt is connected to Asia, right, by the what would later become the Suez Canal. And the Suez Canal goes from, if you look at the Mediterranean Sea and you locate Egypt, right, the Suez Canal, right, connects the Nile and the isthmus, this rectangular, right, where the Nile flows into Mediterranean, right, that is the Nile, from there they already 2,500 years ago, Iranians actually built sort of a canal that connected the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea, right? So that you could do shipping without having to go overland, right? So that is one important sort of bottlenecks, if you will, of the world, right? If you look at further to the east, right, you will see that another bottleneck of the world, right, is here, and it is in what we call, in what we call, and I will write on this, the Strait of Hormuz, right? The Strait of Hormuz, right, which is this strait here, you see, where I'm opening up here, right? This, where you see Ras Al Khaimah, right? Ras Al Khaimah, right? This is in the Persian Gulf, right? And you see Ras Al Khaimah, and this is the Strait of Hormuz. You see the Strait of Hormuz there, right? And we call, right? And if you think, why is Iran so important, right? Why are these Gulf states have become so important only during the past, say 70 or 80 years, as far as the Gulf states for modern world is concerned? Because Qatar and United Arab Emirates and Bahrain and Kuwait and whatnot did not exist, right, until the 1940s, 1950s or so. Okay, but as far as the Persian Gulf is concerned, you see that what we have here in this part of the world is the largest sort of accumulations of oil, and oil is nothing anymore. Well, it is very much an issue, right? But gas, right? Gas is very, very, very important nowadays. In fact, one of the reasons that the whole Soviet Union, we went onto Earth. Okay, we don't want the satellite. Okay, excuse me. Okay, so in the Caspian Sea, actually around Caspian Sea, the reason you have these various entities created as Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan, and Azerbaijan. Well, Azerbaijan has been there for a long time, but here the reason you have these new entities developing, being created just shortly before most of you were born, actually, right? And is because of gas, right? The gas sort of accumulations, the great reservoirs of gas that they have found under the Caspian Sea and in this part of the world. And one of the reasons that that we are so incredibly involved in Afghanistan, and we have been incredibly involved in Afghanistan and Central Asia for a long time, my friends, is that one of the best ways, right, to connect to the sea, right, from this part of the world, from what we call now, excuse me again, what we now call Central Asia, right? I mean, this we consider to the east of Africa, right? What comes to the east of Africa as Asia, right? And then we consider this part of Asia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan, and so forth, as Central Asia, right? And so on and so forth. And the only reason that the only way that you can come from this part of the world to the oceans is through, right, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and specifically Afghanistan, right? So I want you to pay attention to the bodies of the world, my friends, right? The Mediterranean Sea, the Black Sea, the Caspian Sea, the Red Sea, right? Mediterranean in front of you, right? This is the, Mediterranean Sea, the Black Sea, right? The Caspian Sea. I want you to know where Persian Gulf is, the Red Sea is. I want you to know another of these bottlenecks, right? Which is called the Gulf of Aden, right? Gulf of Aden, and in a place called Bab al Mandab, right? Bab al Mandab means the gate of Mandab, which is a name, right? And this is a very important, again, a very important sort of canal, right? That connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden, right? Bottlenecks, right? And so on and so forth. Okay, so you see our oceans then, right? North Atlantic Ocean between Africa, right? And Americas and the Americas, right? You see the Caribbean Sea. You see Gulf of Mexico, Mexico itself, right? Central America, right? South America, one of the most oil-producing countries of the world, Venezuela, and so forth, and so on, my friends, right? And so the other sort of bottlenecks that I want you to pay attention to is this one, right? You can go through this strait, which is called the Strait of Gibraltar, right? So I want you to know your straits, my friends, right? The Strait of Hormuz, the Strait of Suez, the Strait of Gibraltar now, right, where North Africa comes closest to Spain, right? And if you come with your ships from the North Atlantic Ocean and go through Gibraltar and go to the Mediterranean Sea, and you want to go back, you have given whatever goods you have, and you have loaded whatever goods you need, right, from Africa, and you want to go back. All of a sudden, Spain or Morocco say, no, we are sorry, the Strait of Gibraltar is closed. You cannot go out of the Mediterranean Sea, right? You can do the same with the Red Sea. Of course, you can do the same with the Persian Gulf, and what you will be keeping as far as Persian Gulf is concerned is the going to and fro of these oil tankers, right? Oil ships, right? From the Persian Gulf, right? The same from Saudi Arabia and so on and so forth. But there are other straits that I want you to know of, right? And that is the following, right? We have the Strait of, okay, let us Strait of Bosphorus, right? Right? You see the Strait of Bosphorus, right? Which connects, my friends, the Black Sea, right? Bosphorus connects the Black Sea to the Sea of Marmara, right? Bosphorus connects the Black Sea to the Sea of Marmara. I'm sorry, let's see where, okay, here we are. To the Sea of Marmara and the Strait of Dardanelles also, right? Which connects, Jesus Christ, excuse me, my friends, which connects, oh, we went into the sea. We actually went into the sea, my friends. Strait of Dardanelles, which is here and connects the Sea of Marmara, right? The Sea of Marmara, the Strait of Dardanelles connects the Sea of Marmara to the Aegean Sea, right? Aegean Sea, right, my friends? Yeah. And you see this Aegean Sea, you see how close it is between mainland Greece, right, and Turkey, right? And if you look at it, actually, Istanbul, the capital of Turkey, not the capital of Turkey, the capital of Turkey is Ankara, one of the most important cities of Turkey, right? It is on the so-called quote-unquote European, right, portion of the land, right? So that's, that's prior empires of Turkey, Ottoman Empire, that was ruling most of this part of the world, most of North Africa and most of Eastern Europe and Turkey and Egypt and Saudi Arabia, not Iran, right? The Ottoman Empire, most of Eastern Europe, right? It had most of Eastern Europe in its history under its control, so therefore it has the contention, right, that that we are part of Europe, right? We want to become part of the European Union, right? So, these Straits of Dardanelles, right, and Bosphorus and Dardanelles are very important because if you are, for instance, if you are the Russians, right, and in fact you have come and sorry, you guys, I keep doing that. I have to make sure. I went inside again. Okay. Okay, my friends. As you see, yeah, if you are coming from Russia and you have ships, right, that wants to go to the Mediterranean, wants to get to the warm seas, right, and you come to the Black Sea, and the Ottomans, as they did, right, in World War I, they said, oh, I am sorry, our straits are closed, right? Our straits are closed and you cannot pass from the Black Sea into the Sea of Marmara in order to go to the Aegean Sea, in order to go to the Mediterranean. Yeah, sorry, you're welcome, but you're not welcome, right? So, okay, I want you to know these straits of the world, right? And I want you to consider, right, also the mountainous nature of this world. You know, you have been told often that, you know, Middle East, and we will still get to that concept. Middle East is an arid part of the world, right? But you look at it, my friends. And you see that it is surrounded by water. Black Sea, Caspian Sea, Mediterranean Sea, Red Sea, Persian Gulf, Gulf of Aden, Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, and then, of course, Indian Ocean, Madagascar, Australia, right? Indonesia, in another important, two very important straits, yeah, Strait of Malacca here, right? And here, right? This other strait close to Jakarta, right? Important sort of waterways also for when the Ethiopians, for instance, wanted to go to India, and from India they wanted to go to say Indonesia, right? And they have to cross Malaysia, right, in order to get to Indonesia, right? So and you see your seas here, right? Well, we remember that one of the straits that was created, which was not there before, is the strait between Alaska, right? What is Alaska, right? And what is sort of Siberia, right? Where originally they were connected, right? But then they become disconnected, and the Bering Sea, right? Bering Sea was sort of created, but then this was you know, Alaska and Asia were connected, so that movements took place, right? Human movements took place from here to Americas. In fact, that's how originally we got to the Americas, right, my friends? Yes, to the Americas, right? And that's where we are. Yeah? Okay. And yeah, that is the Bering Canal and the Bering Sea. Right, my friends? So, yeah, you're familiar with our own Hudson Bay and whatnot. And so these are the major rivers of the world, major waterways of the world that I want you to know about, right? And I want you to see, right, the lush parts of our earth, right? Uh, Although we think Africa is barren, right? Africa was not always barren. In fact, Africa was like Central Africa, quite lush, right? Or you see here in northern Iran, one of the lushest part of the world, right? Because there is so much rainfall, right? And remember, I told you it's fertile crescent because it looks like a fertile. The other thing that I want you to pay attention is that in this part of the world there is something called the rain shadow effect, right? And that is when the wind from the seas hits the mountains, right? In this case, Mount Lebanon and Anti-Lebanon, right? And these mountains, the wind brings moisture, it hits these mountains, right? And it creates water, obviously, right? And rain, right, happens on the side of the land that is closest to water. That's rain happening, right, and making it lush, and then rivulets come down the mountains here, right, and you will get also, you know, agricultural areas here, right? You remember our first cities, right, was created close to Jordan, right? Okay, so one of our first cities, right, my friends? You know that this is Cyprus, right? Of course. You know, excuse me. You know, Italy is. I'm sorry. It's excuse me, is kicking Sicily here, right? So you have rain shadow effect here on the eastern Mediterranean coast, and of course you have rain shadow effects on the Caspian Sea, on the littoral of the Caspian Sea, because you see, the other thing that you have to note about Asia, it is of course how mountainous it is. I don't know how I'm going to not stop doing this. Okay, my friends. So mountainous, right? And you see that here we call Turkey, or the other name for it, Turkey. The other name for it, excuse me, is Anatolia, right? And we will go back and you will look at it. If this is Turkey, right? There's a series of mountains here. There's a series of mountains here, and there are mountains in between, right? And it makes it very, very mountainous. And okay, I go back to, well, let's see, right, it makes it extremely mountainous, and here we can see it. We can see that we have our rain shadow effects again here, right? And these series of mountains, right? What one So here I wanted us to go to Taurus Mountains, right? Okay, show us. Where is it? Taurus Mountains. Okay. All right, series of mountains. These are the Taurus Mountains, my friend. Here, and these are another series of mountains, the name of which right now escapes me, but I will continue. Okay, and here in Iran, you see that on the western side of Iran, right, it is very important for us to realize, okay, where Baghdad is now is where Babylon was before, right? Tigris and Euphrates coming closer together, close to each other, right? Euphrates and Tigris going to Iran. But if you want to go to Iran, you have to pass these mountains that are going diagonally from Tabriz, northwest of Iran, right? They're just going to Shiraz, and you see it continues around the coast, and then you see it gets mountainous here, and there is mountains here, right? And I want you to, well, it would be nice if you learned the name of the mountains, especially these mountains, which are called the Zagros Mountains. And I want you to look up the Alborz Mountains on your own, my friend. Okay? So here we get the map of our world, right? The map of our world, and we are told that right here, right, in this part of the world, right, we are told that, please forgive me, I have to figure this out at a later time on my own. Okay. Okay, we are somewhere here in the Americas, right? And we are told that the Western civilization, presumably the civilization of Europe, right, and the rest of the West, which is the Americas, right, started actually, right, here in the Middle East, right? So, okay, all right, fine. So, Middle East, and now I want you to close your eyes and I ask you, what do you include in Middle East, right? And when I do these exercises with my students when I'm in class, right, our definition of Middle East, right, goes anywhere, excuse me, encompasses, yeah, for instance, I say, I asked them, do you put Morocco in the Middle East? Well, no, it's in Africa, But yeah, do you really, sometimes you put it, put Tunisia and Morocco and Egypt and Libya in the Middle East? Yes, we do. Why do you do that? Yes, because they're all Muslims. I thought we were talking about territorial terms, right? Yeah, so what? Okay, so that's as far as that is concerned. What is Middle East, right? Is Afghanistan part of the Middle East? Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan part of the Middle East? No, that's Central Asia. So why do we call it Middle East, right? Well, because to us, right, sitting here in Europe, right, this part of the world, right, is the middle of the East, right? It is not the Near East, which is the Near East is Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and all, right? We are telling you, right? And it's not Far East, right? Because Far East is too far from us. It's China, right? The point of departure is us, don't you know, right? We are the center of the world, right? So So, okay, we're sitting here and we're saying our culture was born in this part of the world. And we call that, ever since early 20th century, we have called that as Middle East. In point of fact, and then and I, another exercise that I do with my students in class is, my friends, when I tell you Middle East, right, what comes to your mind, right? So, and then we start saying, right? Just shut it off, shut this video off for a moment and try to answer it. When we think of Middle East, what do we think of? And usually the answers are very, very, very clear. We think of terrorism, we think of wealth, we think of arid land, we think of people riding camels, right? We think of, a turbulent land, right? That the population of which has been on each other's throat from time immemorial, right? But don't you forget, our civilization starts in the same part of the world, right? And but then in the process it became Western, and we'll tell you how it becomes Western, and so on and so forth, right? So okay. So that's as far as that is concerned. So we call you Middle East, and you have, when I say Middle East, all these sort of received ideas come to your mind, right? Is a land of terror, arid land, this, that. Okay, why do you call it Middle East? Because it's in reference to us. What is its actual, terminology since ancient times, right? How did we, since ancient times, how did we call this part of the world, right? How did we call this part of the world? Of course, we called it Asia, right? We called it Asia, right? Asia that encompasses Anatolia, encompasses this fertile crescent, encompasses parts of Africa also, right? So we call this part of the world, right, Asia and Africa, or Africa, Asia, right, whatever, but it is Asia, right? It is not middle of somewhere, it is not far off somewhere, it is not close to somewhere, it is on its own Asia. So imagine if instead of Middle East, we say Western Asia, right? We say Western Asia, which is what it is, right? Because Asia, as we saw, is very, very big, right? So we call this Western Asia. And the minute you call it Western Asia, my friends, right, all these presumptions go away, don't they, right? Western Asia, you cannot say Western Asia is full of terror, right? You cannot say Western Asia is arid, because you see it's the river valley civilizations happen in Western Asia, and so on and so forth. So, my friends, I will not go into too much of a detail here anymore, right? But I just want you to consider your geographies very, very properly, right, my friends? And let me see, right, that we have also, I have also now talked about the problematic, right, my friends, of this whole notion of Western, what is Western in the history of Western civilization. So we have covered history, we have covered quote-unquote Western, and now we will then begin our story with the civilizational discourse, and we will begin talking about the river valley civilizations in the lectures to come. Okay, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this lecture. It was a pleasure lecturing for you. Okay, my friends, until next lecture, I bid you farewell and be splendid. Okay, my friends, bye.